Good Thursday morning. Again, I'm going to stay with St. Mark, okay? This is kind of, I like this text very much. Let me read it to you. Jesus withdrew toward the sea with his disciples. A large number of people followed from Galilee and from Judea. Hearing what he was doing, a large number of people came to him also from Jerusalem, from Idumea, even from beyond the Jordan, and from the neighborhood of Tyre and Sidon. He told his disciples to have a boat ready for him because of the crowd, so that they would not crush him. He had cured many, and as a result, those who had diseases were pressing upon him to touch him. And whenever unclean spirits saw him, they would fall down before him and shout, "You are the Son of God." He warned them sternly not to make him known. That's a tricky last line, okay? But the boat, you have to... he gets in the boat, but the boat becomes the symbol of the church. You know that. The bark of Peter, the boat of Peter. And I think, whatever it may be worth to you, I think I've had enough experience. I have a boat, okay? I had experiences, but not so much here, but on the ocean. When I used to go out fishing with my dad on the ocean, on the Long Island Sound, but then also with my dad, but also with two of his friends, Pete and Demi. They had a boat. Pete had a very good boat, okay? It's, it's an 18-footer with a 50-horsepower motor. For us, that was rocket launching, okay? We used to use rowboats, okay? In 1950, my father bought an outboard motor, 5.5 horsepower. We've had that for 30 years. Pete still might have it 50 years later. It worked. Whatever. But the kicker is the experience you have on the water. Pete Ferriola had a little plaque. In fact, I've got it. I don't know if he gave it to me or I got it. And the plaque says, "Oh God, how big is your ocean? How small is my boat?" And he's right. The one experience, there's two places you experience your finitude, how limited you are, how finite you are. And that's the ocean and the wilderness. When up in Alaska, even northern Ontario, when you see the vastness, the sheer vastness of the land. I remember telling one friend of mine who was a guide there up in Alaska, "I don't want you out of my sight," because I could get lost. And I said, joking, I can get lost in the sacristy. And the vastness of it all. Well, the ocean's that way too. Sometimes even in enclosed water like Long Island Sound. You can't control the water. What did they say? Time and tide respects no man. And I remember we used to know how to read the sky, just like the ancient mariners did, because you knew what a storm looked like on the horizon and when it didn't. And you knew what you had to do. You had to get off the water. You feel how small your boat is. I remember one time I was out with Pete and Demi. It was 1972, roughly 50 years ago. We were way out. We went way past Gardiner's Island on Long Island. We were Montauk. We were way out, okay? And the wind started picking up. And it was getting fairly strong. It wasn't storming yet, but it was on the horizon. And we started to go in. And we had to go in at maybe 10, 12 miles. I forgot what it was, but we had to pass both Gardner Island, Plum Island. You look at a map, we were right at the tip. East, you're in the Atlantic Ocean. Go west, you're in Long Island Sound. We were heading west. And you have to see it. You had to be there. And there was three of us in the boat. It's an 18-footer with a 50 horsepower in the back. And we're riding it in. And we were getting creamed. We're getting hit by the wind coming from Long Island Sound and the tide and the waves. And it's funny, as we're coming in, you get very quiet in the boat. You're just listening to the engine because you know you're in danger. You know how small is your boat and how big is the water. It's a great sign of your own humility and humanity. I can understand these texts because I know what it's like. I know what it is like. To be in a boat, and the boat is your security, and it's the church. But at the same time, the water can be very, very rough, but as long as you stay with the boat. There's a rule of thumb that says never leave the boat. If the boat capsizes, hold on to the boat. Don't leave the boat. See? Because if you do, you'll drown. But as long as you're clinging to the boat, you won't drown. You see? That's the truth. Stay with it. And it's a great analogy of the church in the turbulent waters of our times. The church is small. It's an 18-footer with a 50 horsepower motor at best. And it's in a big hunk of water, and it is rough out there. We've not only got a strong wind, but we got strong tides, and the tides are against us. The tides of modernity are against the church, and they're fueled by the winds of time and the whims of time. Not only the wind, but the whims. The temptation when the water is that rough is to get out of the boat. Why, I don't know, but is to get out of the boat, and that is to almost guarantee you'll drown. You stay with the boat. See, you stay with the boat. And you trust the guy who's running it, Pete Ferriola. He knew what he was doing. See, and the way he cut the boat, the way we cut the waves, we got in without a tiny bit of problem. My knees were rubbery, but we got in. We were fine. That happened to us one time on Shelter Island, too, with my classmates, Joe Sedley and Jim Laurie. We went way out. Again, same thing. We went out into the ocean. And then on the way back in, we hit some foul weather. Wow, that was a ride in, I have to say. And the guys in the monastery, in our summer home, were worried about us. They knew we were out there, and it was really, really getting ugly. I mean, bad. It was going to be a thunderstorm with high winds, and we were way out, and we were coming in. And the truth of the guys, they got in cars and they went along the bluffs on Shelter Island to watch for us. And finally they saw us coming in. That was another time we got out of that boat. I'm going to tell you, my legs were like pure rubber. I was so nervous, so scared, and it was such a rough ride. But you see, it's still the church. Rough as it is, wobbly as it may seem, it's safe in the boat. Stay in the boat. And I think of that so much as the church. Stay with the church. No matter how rough it is, no matter how small it is, and the ocean's so big, as strong as the tides against us, and the sides of secularism are massive, and the winds are blowing directly against us. You could jump in, but you'll drown in meaninglessness. But if you stay with the boat, she will save you through her wisdom. She's got a good captain. Somebody knows how to negotiate the wind and the waves. Yeah, that's the truth. That's not a bad analogy. Christ is the captain. He guides the boat. Stay with it. And I think the church leadership is that way. He knows how to guide the ship. Can't guarantee, a smooth ride. It can't do that at all, but it can get you home. It gets you into the harbor. That's the truth. You get that outdoor experience of a boat in either the ocean or a large lake. I've seen it on the lakes too, where you get a storm. Let me tell you something. You pay a lot of attention to the wind, the air, the sky, the water. And you manage your boat accordingly. One of the things you do, you notice something, I'll give you one more and I quit. You stop talking in the boat. You just stop talking. It gets a very real quiet, takes over. You know what you're doing? You're listening to the engine. That engine quits, you're in deep trouble. As long as that engine's running, we're going to get in. Think of the engine as the sacraments. It's going to get us in. That's the truth. I can remember those times. My God, you just listen to that engine because you knew that's your safety. That's how you're getting in. That engine is going to get this boat in. If not, oh man, we're in for a whale of a bad time. Man. Think of the church. Think of the church in the ocean or in a big lake under stormy conditions. And think of the sacraments as the engine. Maybe as the leadership of the church, and maybe as the captain. Very fallible, but still better than nothing. See? But just think of the engine as the sacraments. And we listen. So long as the engine's running, we'll get in.